Hi, everybody. Welcome to the center. Welcome to our self-healing class. Louise Hay was our student here in New York many years ago, and I encountered her material in the late 80s, and we've been teaching these or presenting these self-healing groups ever since. So welcome if you're watching us later this week on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. Last week I heard that we had over 100 people commenting, and we've had as many as 1,000 people this week making comments on social media. So that's really remarkable that we're reaching larger and larger numbers of people. We hope that we can get our healing message out to as many as possible. Jimmy mentioned you can become a member, or you can support the center in any way you like on any of the social media. You'll find links. Tonight's class comes from a workshop. Louise Hay did a lot of workshops, and I was a part of a few of them, and I have her notes on most of them. There was one that was called Being the Gift that we have worked with, and there's another one. And this evening, I wanted to start with a little bit of an affirmation about gratitude, so we can come to a receptive place in consciousness, so we can be open for this lesson. And here we go. I know as I center myself in calm and peace that there is an energy here and I can sense it. I know it is within me and that it's all around me. And this energy is with anyone who is with us and part of this gathering today. And it's with anyone who's listening to this gathering now or in the days to come. As I center myself and go within, there's gratitude for being alive and being aware that this energy responds to me and to all of us. I now allow this energy to fill my heart, my body, my mind, my consciousness, my very being. This gratitude radiates out from me to all who are listening in all directions, touching everything and everyone. It returns to me from everywhere, and there is a realization that there's still more to appreciate and be grateful for. The more I feel this, the more I'm aware that the supply is endless. This realization and the use of gratitude and appreciation makes me feel good. It's a joyous feeling, and it comes from this deep realization. I'm grateful for myself, for my body, my mind. I'm grateful that I'm able to see and hear, feel, taste, touch. I'm grateful for the place I live, my friends, my family, and I rejoice in their company. I'm grateful for my work, my interest, grateful for this center that's reaching so many people, and I give it my best at all times. I'm grateful for my talents and my abilities. I continually express them in ways that are fulfilling, and I'm grateful for whatever I have, knowing that this brings more good. I'm prosperous and I attract opportunities all the time. I live joyously and joyfully in the now, and I'm grateful for all the past experiences that have contributed to my soul's growth. I'm grateful for all of nature. I'm respectful for every living thing, and I'm grateful for today, and I'm grateful for tomorrow and all the tomorrows to come. And so it is. That's in addition to tonight's affirmation, which was done by Celia, correct? Yeah, thank you, Celia. So again, good evening. I know people have been signing on as I've been speaking. Thank you for joining today's class, self-healing class. I found something for you by Ernest Holmes that I'll paraphrase to you. Ernest Holmes, of course, wrote the material that was the foundation for Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. I think most everybody finds us because of Louise Hay these days. We call this class the Hay and Holmes class because the information that Louise received, for the most part, she studied right here at our center in New York. She was an early practitioner here. And here we are all these years later, and I myself have been facilitating her groups since the book came out. The book was very helpful to many of the people I was working with in Florida at the time who were dealing with cancer and AIDS. And I saw all kinds of healing by the use and application of the principles taught in the book, You Can Heal Your Life. But I want to start with Ernest. He said, I know there is power for good, which is responding to me. I bring into my experience everything that's necessary for my unfoldment, my happiness, my peace, my health, and my success. I know there is power for good that enables me to help others and to bless the entire world. I say quietly to myself, there is one life, and it is good, it is perfect, and it is my life now. My heart beats perfectly with the pulsation of the universe, always in serenity and in peace. My whole physical being is filled with divine spirit, and if there is anything going on within me that does not belong, or you could say it for yourself too, let's decide now in this gathering, each of us to release it. You might say, I lovingly release it, or dynamically release it. Our Thursday lessons at First Center are based on the book, again, You Can Heal Your Life. This class goes on every single week of the year. We have something like 50 or 60 lessons. And it's always a discussion about self-healing. Some have said this class is an introduction to metaphysics. It is a discussion about truth, metaphysical truth, the truth of you. It's a discussion about learning to love yourself. It's a discussion about creating a better life. Dr. Holmes said there's power for good in the universe and you can use it. So it's a discussion about how to use the power that you have. I know many of you, I was taught 40 years ago, I was in a 12-step program, I was taught that I'm powerless. And it can be confusing because if you were in a 12-step program, you might hear you're powerless. And what is being said in that context is you're powerless over your addiction when you're actually using a substance or you're in a behavior. But as spiritual beings, we are far from being powerless. We are powerful beyond our knowing. And Ernest Holmes said there's power for good in the universe, greater than you, of which you are a part. You're an individualization of this power, and it's yours to use, it's yours to develop. So in this class, we learn about power, we learn how to love ourselves more, we learn about how to use our power, we learn about self-mastery. This evening we're going to be talking about the power of love and trying to put into practice what we teach. In a recent lesson, I mentioned an old saying from a friend, and I'll repeat it again. I think I've said it 3 times this past 2 weeks. I asked Jimmy if he keeps giving me the same lesson. And the expression is, inspiration without application is hallucination. So in other words, it's one thing to come to a center or get yourself inspired, but what really needs to happen after that is we need to start applying some of the ideas that we are learning. When I was taught early on as a minister practitioner to start doing affirmative prayers for parking places, I used to think, that's pretty silly, you know. But what they wanted us to do is start practicing using the teaching, because as you start practicing, you will start to have demonstrations. So, just an affirmation that I am supplied and supported, and there's a perfect pattern of health in me. As you start to say these affirmations, and as you start to learn to build up that consciousness, or as you start to think of yourself as being a loving and lovable person, as you start to embody these things that you're saying, these affirmations, you're going to see a reflection or a demonstration of what it is that you're first affirming, then you're starting to embody and you're beginning to believe. So we're always going to give you great reminders on Thursdays and Sundays, and Wednesday evenings too, on how to improve your life, how to heal your life. And the improvements can be in any area of life, because you have the power you have to use can heal conditions. It can make you whole. It can make you more prosperous. It's not limited to any area of your life. So you have power to use, power greater than you are that you can use. But to use it, there needs to be practice. So you've heard another expression since you were a child probably, saying it so doesn't make it so. So we can get inspired and we can be reminded and we can make affirmations. And it's great. It's a great place to start. But if you want to take it to a higher level, to go deeper, and I know many of you on this call do, you can take this teaching to a very deep place. You can start to have, you can level up to a kind of life you never dreamed of before. I've said recently, and I've also heard the feedback, many of you really want these positive things to happen. You want demonstrations. You want big demonstrations, and you ask, can I create a much bigger life? And the answer is always going to be, of course, you can. You might say to me or send in feedback, I'm listening and I'm doing the best I can. And if you're listening and you're doing the best you can, that's really good. You ought to give yourself a pat on the back. For those of you who want more, and there are many of you I know that want more, there's no limit. You can have more. You absolutely can have more. The universe doesn't know the difference between large and small. The universe doesn't hold back on you. It's kind of like goes back to the idea of what are you approaching the ocean of life with in terms of the idea of the container. If you have a very big consciousness in terms of positive expectancy, and you maintain that positive expectancy, the universe is not going to hold back on you. It comes back to, many talks we've had about having bigger buckets, having the imagination of, and the greater visualization. So maybe it's time for some of you, for me to have a bigger idea, greater visualization of what we'd like to happen in our life. And then most importantly, we need to start applying some of this information. All of our teaching, all of our lessons from our Science of Mind lessons have always quoted Florence Scovel Shinn, who said, we need to become the guardian at the gate. In other words, she's saying we need to pay more attention to what our thinking is and what our words are. We want to work more with our thoughts and ideas a little bit more to bring them to a deeper place in our consciousness. Today I want to more completely explain the difference between affirmations and learning how to do affirmative prayer or affirmative prayer treatment. Many of the old great metaphysical teachers spoke about the power of affirmative prayer. While affirmations and affirmative prayer both involve the use of positive statements, they operate on different levels of consciousness and intention. An affirmation is a statement of positive belief or intention, such as I'm worthy of love and success, or I'm loving and lovable. Or another one that you heard me say often is, I love, accept, and approve of myself. These are examples of affirmations that sometimes you put on sticky notes or mirrors and you repeat throughout the day or the week. Affirmations are powerful in helping to shift limiting beliefs that we might have and negative self-talk. And it primarily works on the conscious level of mind. If they're repeated often enough, they can be built up into our consciousness. An affirmative prayer, it's a little bit different. Or affirmative prayer treatment, on the other hand, is a spiritual practice that involves aligning our consciousness with this inner power, this divine power, this higher power. So Affirmative prayer takes it to a much deeper place, and you stay with it until you can feel a shift in consciousness. It's often used to address a specific challenge and focuses on the truth of the situation as exists in the spiritual realm. An affirmative prayer is not asking for anything, but rather affirming the truth of what already exists, like I'm whole and complete, I'm a perfect spiritual being. It's an affirmation of something that's always true and always has been true. For example, instead of asking for healing, an affirmative prayer might affirm that the perfect health is already present. Or it might say, I'm whole and perfect now, I am complete now. In an affirmative prayer, the focus is on aligning with the divine and allowing that spiritual truth to come through. Because in the second step of treatment, it's called unification. The first step is we're recognizing that that there is one power, one love, one light, one energy. And the second step is you're stating that you are one with this light and this energy. So in an affirmative prayer, the focus is on aligning with this divine energy and allowing the spiritual truth to come through and manifest in our physical experience. This operates on a deeper level of consciousness than an affirmation, and it can have a more profound impact on your life. So as I promised before, we'll do a class or two on learning to do affirmative prayer. But affirmations by themselves are very useful in shifting limiting beliefs and starting to turn everything around, especially the negative self-talk. And affirmative prayer is perhaps a more powerful practice because it aligns one's consciousness with the divine, and it clears the way for the manifestation of spiritual truth in one's physical experience. So if you're working on affirmations and you're taking them into consciousness deeply, which I know some of you are, you're building up your belief, and that's very powerful, and you will start to see demonstrations as a result. We have classes, again, that will show you how to do affirmative prayer. We'll probably pick a special night and to do that. But in either case, working with affirmations or learning to do affirmative prayer, we come together to be reminded of the truth of who we are. We are infinite beings. We're filled with light and intelligence. We have power at our disposal. If you find yourself having a tough week, you might say, I've had a tough life. Or if you find yourself being very critical of yourself or have a low opinion of yourself or suffer from low self-esteem, it usually goes back to a time in our life where we were learning to accept less, or for one reason or another, we did not feel worthy. As you know, Louise Hay said the bottom line for everyone that she's ever spending time with or worked with is they don't feel good enough. They're comparing themselves. They just don't feel adequate. And that usually comes from our, childhood. I'm going to give you a few questions this evening that you can reflect on gently, because not to criticize yourself, but just reflect on to see what comes up for you. We all have areas that need to be brought to light. So these questions, you can just answer for yourself. Are there areas in your life where you feel like you don't measure up, or you're not good enough? Just something to think about. As you think about your life, do you find yourself comparing yourself to other people? What their possessions are, what they look like, what they've acquired, or any of that type of thing, or whether they're nice or more nice, or do you find yourself comparing yourself with others? Another self-assessment question. Have you ever felt like you didn't deserve something something really good that's happened to you? Have you felt unworthy, or this really, I shouldn't have gotten this? Next question, are you afraid of rejection? Does the idea of rejection stop you or halt you in any way? Or are you afraid of failing? And does that stop you from taking a risk or trying something new? We have about 5 more of these. Have you ever felt like you're not worthy of happiness or love? Next question, do you engage in negative self-talk? In other words, when you're by yourself, are you kind of like down on yourself? Do you say, oh, you're a dummy, or you're this, you're that? Or do you chastise yourself? And are you rough on yourself? Do you criticize yourself? Do you find that you are critical of others? Are you quick to judge? Next self-assessment question is, are there things that you wanted to do in your life that you haven't because you don't feel confident? You know, are you just not willing to make a start because you're afraid and you don't feel confident? Couple more. Do you feel like you're constantly seeking approval from your husband, your girlfriend, your boss, from someone? Or are you looking for validation from other people? Next question. Have you ever felt like you're an imposter? Or like you don't belong where you are? Some people tell me I'm an imposter in my own family. I don't belong there. But these are questions to reflect on. Next and last, and again, just gently reflect on these. You're not alone in these questions or the struggles. Are you comfortable being yourself? You know, do you enjoy your own company? Or do you feel like you have to put on some special act or some special persona to fit in and to be likable? Or do you have something underneath that's like, my God, if they really knew what I was thinking, they wouldn't like me? So these are questions to reflect on. You're not alone in any of them. Everything we do in the classes on Thursday is to help us to spot in our inner dialogue where we're down on ourselves or down on others, because that inner dialogue you're having with yourself is the thing that's creating your life. So I go on with the lesson. Is there any other area where you are self-rejecting or you're working against yourself? I used to have a minister friend who was always talking about this other person. He shouldn't have been, but he was. He said, her consciousness is always going to trip her up. Well, so that could be asked of any of us. Is your consciousness tripping you up? In other words, you aspire to live in a place where you're not judging and you're happy and you have positive expectancy. Is your consciousness tripping you up? Meaning, like, are you judgmental? Are you holding on to grudges? Are you working against yourself? Because we do our work here in the inner realm. We don't do our work in the outer realm. So we do our work in our thoughts and our thinking. It's all done, as we say, in mind. So these questions and the answers you come up with are really helpful because they can be a guidepost for you. Only you know if you're missing the mark, and if you notice you're missing the mark, we're not even asking the questions, in any way for you to be critical of yourself, but simply so we can become more aware. It would be like, okay, this is an area that I need to focus on. When people come to Thursday classes and Sunday in particular, most people are coming because they're longing for more. They're longing to live in a more connected way with your soul. Your spirit's longing. I remember one of my teachers saying, we are God. We just have forgotten. Now, I'm sure she was meaning that we are individualizations of this one source, this one God. But she has a point. Everything is spirit. Everything is source. We are one with this energy. We are one with this power. We have power available to heal and to transcend any problem. We have power to use, and we want to learn how to use it more effectively. If you sense in your being that your soul is longing for more, or you're wanting more, you're starting to want more, that's really great. You came into this world to do amazing things. If you're sensing it is so, then it's time, and that's great. The universe is always, as Emerson said, wooing us and attempting to get our attention so we can live a bigger life. If you've made it this far and you're in a class like this, there's no coincidence. All I can suggest is stay with it. Tune in as often as you can, even if it's challenging to you to listen to it, and start paying attention most of all to your inner conversation, your self-talk, your inner dialogue. Your inner dialogue is so very creative. If you come and you attend when you attend on Thursdays and Sundays, we will always be giving you suggestion after suggestion of ways to live in connection with yourself and to remember who you are, and keep reminding you to stay awake. Because the universe, as you think about it, it's what it does. It's going to respond to you. It responds to what you really believe. Our weekly subjects are always connected to topics that are brought up in Louise Hay's writings or from our text. I remember long ago a passage from John where the suggestion was essentially, love one another as I have loved you. Love your brother as yourself. That message is timeless, and it can be applied to just about any faith or belief system. The message is rooted in the idea that all human beings are connected on a spiritual level, and this connection is based upon a fundamental unity. This message is based on the idea of oneness. Love your brother, love your sister as yourself, because you are a part of this one energy. You're not separate from anything or anyone. The subject of oneness, for me, was a whole third year of ministerial training where we could talk about nothing else for a year and a half. It was interesting because, we're training ourselves to see that this God, this force is in everything and everyone and all the time. And we realized in those classes there was a lot of work yet to be done. But that's the work, to see the good, to see the God in everything and everyone, and to heal our lives. When we recognize this oneness, we begin to see our well-being is linked to the well-being of others and to the world itself. The concept of oneness, the interconnectedness of life, is the central idea of New Thought, and in many spiritual traditions. It explains the connection we have with Source, this spirit within us, and it explains to us how we're interdependent and we are connected with everything all the time. There is no separation in the mind of God, or as we would say, in Source. Deepak Chopra would say there's a unitary field that we all partake in, we're all a part of. We might speak of separation, we might label people, we might judge people in every kind of way, as you see people do, but that doesn't mean the separation is real. So I could say a whole bunch of things about you, but not a word of it's true. Everyone is part of this spiritual system. Everyone exists in it. Everybody is one. We're all individualizations of this God source. When we find ourselves in judgment about anything or anyone, or we create the idea of separation, I promise you it's only done in your own consciousness. It is not real. A great quote from a book I'm fond of is, "Nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists." Now that's kind of a deep idea. I don't know if everyone will get it. But it's really saying you can judge people however you like, but they are still all one with spirit, they're one with you, and that can't be threatened. Any judgments any of us have, it doesn't exist in truth. What exists in truth is that you are one with this spirit, you are one with, you might say, the Father, you are one with Source, where everyone is whole and complete. That's a little deeper idea than I usually take in this class, but it's time to talk about a few of these ideas. Because judging people and making people wrong puts you in separation. I remember a therapist years ago saying, "Who's got the problem?" So if I'm in judgment and I'm carrying a grudge and I'm really talking about somebody else, I so fondly remember her asking, who has the problem? If you're the person who's doing the judging and all of that, it's you that are you're in the place where there is the disconnect. And so it's if you find yourself there, it's yours to fix, it's yours to heal. And if you're learning to love yourself, you don't want to be there. As soon as you find yourself there, stop in the name of love and start again, and know that you're whole and complete and you're one with the one, and you realize that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have, and as I've said so many times before. So we want to go back to the idea of oneness, one undivided love, one undivided energy, one undivided power that exists everywhere. This is the ultimate truth, beyond the surface differences that we see in the world. So as you grow and you explore these concepts more, and as you stay with us, you're going to appreciate the idea of oneness more and more. And as you do, you're going to be lifted up, because you're not going to be sweating the small stuff. You're going to know that you want to be, like as Jimmy said earlier, we're doing important work, all of us. Spiritually, you're here to learn and grow. You're doing important work, and you don't want to go down and dwell in those places. That will take you nowhere you want to go. So as you contemplate this connection with this source, you're going to be lifted up, and you're going to start to realize that you're not isolated as an individual, but rather you are individualizations of this one amazing power that responds to you and will give you the kind of life that you want. As big as you can think into it, as great as your visualization can be, you can walk into that world. So we want to be the gift. We want to be the applauders, the cheerleaders. We are spiritual beings. We begin by loving, accepting, and approving of ourselves exactly as we are. There's other important points that magnify what Louise taught in this workshop. First, as just mentioned, it emphasized loving yourself. Then after that, be sure to love your brother, your sister as yourself. Extend love. Have love for yourself and extend it. Most of us as children and most families were taught to love other people and help them if we could. I got that message, most likely you did too. But I didn't always get the part about loving myself in my early years of religious studies. I was taught that we're all sinners and that we're supposed to help people less fortunate. And I was taught that we're supposed to carry the message. But on this loving myself part, totally missed that part. Most of you likely did also. It wasn't emphasized too much. And it's been there. It's been there for over 2,000 years. It was in the New Testament. Again, love your brother as yourself. So the importance of this class is not to overlook the loving yourself part. It's been overlooked for too long. Throughout my life, I've seen loads of well-intentioned people trying to help other people, and that's really beautiful. I've worked myself in agencies where I've witnessed other people doing the impossible for others, and I recollect they were doing extra hours with no pay. They did it because they were committed to helping people. I remember most of these caretakers and caregivers did not take very good care of themselves, and I was one of them for a while. So giving all our time, talent, and money, as I recall. So we come into this teaching and we learn that life loves a giver. It's true. If you're one of these people, you've been a blessing to the world already. So the big thing for tonight, though, there needs to be love for you also, so you can really be the light and to be the gift that the world needs. There needs to be joy for you, peace for you, prosperity and positive expectancy for you too.